What have residents and families been told so far by Manx Care?
So we've received a really impersonal letter addressed to the rooms in the facility, just basically saying that the building will be getting decommissioned within the next 2 years.
My mother has dementia, so I have chosen not to tell her at this present time. I did get a letter. I heard about it on Facebook while I was away. I was concerned, so I did phone Cummal Mooar, who advised me that my mother had not been told, and personally they would wait until I got back.
What would the financial impact be on families and residents if there isn't a new facility built before the current one is decommissioned?
We really don't know. It's a really grey area because there have been indications that potentially the residents could stay within the north of the island if the decommissioning went ahead. That said, the only facilities available are private ones, so there will probably be an increase. It'll be double the weekly amount, but we don't know who's going to fund it. Is it going to be us? Will it be Manx Care? It's a really worrying time because nobody knows what the situation is going to be.
And if there are no places in Ramsey, then would it be Douglas? Would it be Port Erin? Because there's only a couple of other facilities run by government and care homes. So we just do not know.
It's the main overwhelming concern is the safety and well-being of the residents and also the staff members. You have to remember that there's a huge impact on those. We don't know what's happening. It's very difficult to say to our loved ones what is going to happen to them. We're all concerned because all we want for them is to have a really loving, nurturing home, which is exactly what they have in Cummal Mooar. And for people to make decisions who sit in perhaps an office that haven't been there and don't know the impact of a potential move, it's heartbreaking. It is really heartbreaking. There are people in tears because they don't know. The uncertainty is huge.
It's just like a big family. They're just going to rip it apart with the residents and the staff. You know, the staff know the residents know who the staff are, and you can't understand that until you actually go there and see it. And you know, we've both been in tears because we know what the outcome of this would be. My mother with dementia, I wouldn't like to know what the outcome would be of moving her away from her home, which is what they want to do, to put her somewhere else with staff that she doesn't know, with other residents that she doesn't know. That's the heartbreaking thing.
Why, oh why, people want to break that up, it really beggars belief. There are so many other areas who are struggling for staffing. There's a team there that wants to stay together, that work. It's proven that they work. They give so much to the residents, and all you have to do is go in and see. Like Tina says, it's like a family. I can see a marked improvement in my mother since she's moved in there. This emphasis of staying in the community, which is what Manx Care seem to be pushing people towards. In an ideal world, it will work, but there are so many practical things against that. Who's going to staff it? What's the funding going to be? From my own perspective, when my mother was in hospital and we were looking at what she was going to do, whether she was going to go back into sheltered housing, at one point we were talking about 5 visits per day. How is that going to be funded? Where are they going to get those people from? She would literally be a prisoner in her own flat waiting for those visits to happen. Where she is now, they give her dignity, she has freedom. I can't really underemphasise how great the facility at Cummal Mooar is. I couldn't have my mum in my house. I live in a Victorian house which is over 3 floors. I have steps every which where you look at. I couldn't get her in or out. I don't have the bathroom facilities. I personally could not do it. So we would have to look for alternative homes. Quite possibly that would have to be out of Ramsey, which would break her and my heart. And I don't see why somebody who has paid into the system all these years should have to be put in that situation. It's wrong. Manx Care don't only have a responsibility from a physical well-being, but there's also a mental well-being as well, and they are not considering this for the staff or residents in any shape or form, or the relatives. I mean, the impact on us is huge, absolutely huge. It's a hard decision putting a relative into any form of residential care, and anybody who's been through that process, I challenge them to say, oh yes, it was an easy one to make. I've cried buckets. We did some real soul searching before we even got to the point of getting into Cummal Mooar. When we signed the papers for Mum to be in there on the 20th of June, we were still told that the facility on the old Cummal Mooar site was going to be rebuilt. So in a way, we've been sold a false ideal of what we were going to get. And perhaps our decision would have been different if we'd have had the full facts at that point in time. And now we're in this real position of flux, and it should not be happening.
I mean, Mum came to live with me during lockdown. That's when I realised that there was a problem, and I couldn't keep her at home. I'm now by myself, so there's no way I could have my mum living with me. And Cummal Mooar, okay, they're saying it's not fit for purpose, but the people that are there don't mind that. There is no ensuite. And yes, in an ideal world, it would be nice. But they're used to that. They get round it. Mum's not bothered. She would rather be there and be happy. When I take Mum home, she would rather get back to Cummal Mooar because that's her home. So what is wrong with Cummal Mooar as a whole? Well, as it is now, why can't they keep it open until a new building is built for them in the north? Because moving them is going to be so difficult for the residents, for the staff, and for the relatives.
Have you had any contact with Manx Care since the announcement of the proposed closure?
Absolutely none.
No.
They literally have dropped the bomb and ran. I personally believe that this was timed. It's been a really strategic move by them to drop this in summer recess. So we can't go to the MHKs. I mean, don't get me wrong, we have done. And I have had contact from 2 MHKs, neither of which are Ramsey ones, which I think is shocking. But both concerned because they have had Rob Collister's been in touch. He grew up in Ramsey, so he's familiar with it. John Wannenberg's been in touch, and we will be taking things further with him. But as for the other MHKs, no, they haven't. And there is no MHK can turn around and say it doesn't have an impact on their constituents, because it does. Because be under no illusion, if Cummal Mooar closes on this timescale, there are 34 residents at this point in time that need to be relocated. That will have a knock-on effect on every single care facility around the island. That's a fact. It's not cloud cuckoo land, that is a fact. It also will have a huge impact on respite care. Now again, there is a huge gap in what respite care is available on the island at the moment. There is a huge demand for it. You speak to anybody who is a social worker, family members, trying to get that respite care is a real issue. And taking away Cummal Mooar, which does provide that valuable service and that break to people who maybe are still caring for their loved ones at home, they need to have a break. They need to have that facility that they know that they can go to, where their loved ones will be looked after, so they can just recharge their batteries just a little bit so they can carry on with it. And let's not forget, that's the track that Manx Care are wanting to go down. So in closing this, it doesn't make sense. In any way you look at it, this move to decommission until another facility is built is totally wrong and illogical.
The next meeting, well, the next we've got is a meeting on the 23rd of August at Cummal Mooar. So that's nearly 4 weeks after the bombshell.
Yeah, that's 4 weeks of uncertainty, upset. That really is unacceptable. It really is. And there is so much upset. It's awful. I take phone calls and messages from people because a lot of like government employees, they do not have a voice. They have been told they are not allowed to comment on this, which in this day and age I think is absolutely disgusting, because some of them do have relatives within the facility and they are not able to stand up and fight for their relatives. That's so wrong, so wrong. I don't even know how the number of messages I've got with people saying we're 100% behind you, but we cannot comment because we will face disciplinary actions if we are identified as being against this. Wrong. So wrong.
So what would you like to see Manx Care do moving forward?
We'd like to say for them to change the word, as Laurie Huber said, should stay open, to will stay open until a new facility is provided in the north.